Welcome, fans of the OBR streaming service, and welcome to Pete and Joe. Pete and Joe, what now? After a pretty rough loss against the New York Jets, my name is Joe Mazzullo. This is Pete Smith. Pete, where do we begin after this weekend, brother?
That's a good question. Probably with the Jaguars, honestly. Probably because not only did they manage to lose in spectacular fashion, but more importantly, Travis Hunter's out for the year. And given the trade the Browns made and how fateful that decision was, one, if you're a Jaguars fan, you got to be extremely concerned that he's already going to be out for the year. Two, you're obviously not happy that he's hurt, unless say for draft sake, in which case I'm thrilled. But it sort of illustrated the major risk with taking a allegedly two-way player who really wasn't even playing all that many snaps, is already out for the year. Like, let's say he's playing a much more significant role on both sides of the ball. You already have to be sitting there. And look, maybe it's a fluke injury, maybe it's nothing, but you at least have in the back of your mind, he's already going to miss basically more than half a season in his first year. Are we really going to try to make him play both ways in year two?
Yeah, and you nailed it. You have to ease him back into things coming off an injury like this. This is a high performance player that is absolutely reliant on not only his speed and explosion, but his ability to change directions on a dime. Like, this is a horrible injury for the player long term. And I mean, look, he could be okay. He could bounce back from this and be all right. He's still young enough that it shouldn't be an issue. But like, he didn't get through half a season, not even playing full time on either side of the ball, and he already has a season-ending injury. For a player who's got a slight build as is and is only looking to one day be a full-time player on both sides of the ball, that's a horrible start to a career.
They need him to be like one of the best players on the whole team. Like, this isn't like, hey, we're going to try this thing out. They traded a first-round pick to get to the second pick in the draft to take a guy who's supposed to transform their franchise.
Yep.
And they got basically one game of garbage time where he looked pretty good.
But you nailed it. It was garbage time. He accumulated most of those yards late when the game was already out of hand. I mean, that's a rough return for year one for Jacksonville. It really, really is. And if you look at the Greg Newsome for Tyson Campbell deal, if I'm Jacksonville, I don't even pick up the phone if it's a 216 area code. You pound salt, man.
Which is interesting. Like, the metrics actually like what Greg Newsome's doing. He just happens to be the ass end of every bad clip that they get. But I guess he's doing fine for what they need him to do. I guess he's
a good player. He's a good player.
But they have to decide if they want to pay him. And obviously the Browns are thrilled with what they've gotten out of Tyson Campbell. So, I mean, if I was I hope the Browns and Jaguars do more trades personally. But I mean, that stuff. I mean, I know there's all kinds of people want to run Andrew Berry out of town. Like, there were so many people who were sitting there going, you have to take Travis Hunter. You have to take him.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And you can be as mad as you want about Mason Graham, but we can talk about who was great on Sunday. You also got Quinshon Judkins. You also got the first-round pick next year, which thankfully they helped out a little bit, and they're currently sitting at 19th pick. I may or may not know that right offhand. You set yourself up to be in a really good spot. If this things need to work out a certain way for them in terms of the draft, but you have to be thrilled with that situation right now.
Well, and check out, look at the other option in the scenario. Say we stayed at 2 and we took Travis Hunter. Where would we be now? We'd be without Quinshon Judkins, and we would have a receiver we can't get the ball to, and a defensive back that looks good in the first half, but winds up, wearing down and giving up plays in the second half. I mean, we'd be in a far worse spot.
The other thing that sort of has come up, obviously, with the New York Giants situation, is there's been a lot of criticism. Should the Browns have taken Jackson Dart? Did they make the right decision on missing out this draft class? And certainly, if you're the Saints right now, you're cautiously optimistic about what you saw from Tyler Shuck in beating Carolina. But my read on the situation right now is, and I'm certainly not going to say Cam Ward stinks. I'm nowhere near that. That situation's awful. But like, you're sitting here going, well, the Browns should have either you were in the Shedeur at 2 camp, or now you're sitting there and going, well, they should have taken Jackson Dart at 5. Jackson Dart, who I really like as a quarterback, I think he can be pretty good, has played like 8 games and been evaluated for a concussion 4 times, and is now out with a concussion, and now he's out of a head coach. Like, I understand why people are sitting there going, man, we got to get our quarterback. And I get it. But like right this second, as mad as you want to be about Dillon Gabriel, like Jackson Dart is the Giants' bet. Like they moved up to get him. He's the guy.
Yeah.
If they can move off Dillon Gabriel and never think twice about it because there's a 3rd round pick. Yeah, you'd like to get more value out of a 3rd round pick, whatever. I think he's still going to be a fine backup, whatever. But like you went whole hog on the Jackson Dart thing. Like that's your play. And I'm right this second, I'm grateful that the Browns did not make that play, because had they done it, you just mentioned it, not having Quinshon Judkins or Mason Graham. Had you done that for Jackson Dart, there'd be other rookies that you would not have on this team. Either one of probably at that point, probably Carson Schwessinger and potentially somebody like Harold Fannin at that point. So that's a lot of players that you would not have on this team if they took those other paths. And, you know, obviously one of these guys could get injured on Sunday and have a disastrous whatever, knock on wood. But like, it looks good right this second in terms of where they're at. They're getting great impact from those guys. They're getting lots of stuff. They look good. They've got 2 guys who are arguably, I mean, Carson Schwessinger, at least right now, is talked about as the favorite for NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Personally, I think whether he wins that or not, and I understand he's got a good shot at it, I think he's in the conversation to make the Pro Bowl as a rookie.
I agree.
Quinshon Judkins, it's never going to win by virtue of just it's really difficult this year with the field. But like, that is a really good spot to be in for this team and trying to build forward, because now whoever it is that's picking for this team next year doesn't have to deal with those issues and gets the freedom to make the big play on, hopefully make substantial big plays on offense. The other thing that sort of there's a lot of things that have been going through my mind on this whole thing. So watching the draft, and you sort of schedule these things out a little bit. And, you know, there's this argument, well, the Browns should have taken Tet McMillan, who I think is a very good player. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, the Browns would be stupid to have taken Tet McMillan. I think he's a really good player. But the scenario that plays out, if you're saying, well, man, the Browns had to address offense this year, well, they could take defensive tackle in 2026. I'm looking at the defensive line class right now, or for defensive tackle. Peter Woods is really, really talented. He's not as good as Mason Graham was last year. I know he might test really, really well, but he's not as good as that. And then after that, it's a huge drop off to a bunch of, you know, the kid from Ohio State who's pretty good as a nose. But like after that, it is not good. So if you want to go through the exercise of, well, they take Tet McMillan, they could take a defensive tackle this year. Let's say you take Peter Woods or whatever. Okay, but I think I'd rather be in a situation where I have Mason Graham, and hopefully I'm in a position where, even if I got to move up a little bit, to get one of Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, or maybe Denzel Boston, or one of those. I think the wide receiver class is going to be better in 2026. I like my chances there. So like here again, I get it. The offense stinks, and I totally understand the frustration there. But if you're like trying to plan these things out, like I'm pretty happy with what I saw from Mason Graham.
Yeah, look, I think Mason Graham's a good player. I think defensive tackle is one of those positions that takes a little bit longer than most for a player to fully acclimate and to get caught up to speed and become a dominant NFL player. I like what I've seen from Mason Graham. You can nitpick all sorts of positions, but it's not like we came away from the 5 spot empty. We got a very strong defensive tackle that's made a lot of plays so far. He should only get better with experience, and he should only get better once he gets off season in the weight room to adjust his body a little bit. Like, I have no issues with Mason Graham, but I mean, you nailed it. The offense is putrid. So it's almost impossible to look at any defensive additions we made this offseason and be like, well, would we have been better off with a quarterback earlier or a wide receiver earlier or something like that? I mean, it's an easy game to play, but luckily enough for Andrew Berry, the guys that he took, he hit on. And he hit on pretty damn good across the board until you get to Dillon Gabriel. And that'll be a wonderful little segue into what we're going to talk about next. But guys, just a heads up, we got Browns 3D weekdays at 6 p.m. with our man, Jeff Lloyd. It's fantastic. It's info straight out of Berea, Monday through Friday. Be sure to check that out. Browns 3D, 6 p.m. Monday through Friday with Jeff Lloyd. All right, Peter, let's talk about the Browns. And I will say that this is the first time that I have spent my post-game ponderings thinking about a new head coach. And I like Kevin Stefanski. I don't want to move off Kevin Stefanski. But, I mean, I need you to talk me off the ledge. Why are we starting Dillon Gabriel again on Sunday? Like, this is the thing that is, like pushing me over, because it's not like we've got a young kid that is making strides every week and he's making plays and he's just coming up short here and there and we're so close to breaking through. I mean, this was the ideal matchup for this kid, and they barely broke 20 points.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Is since I'm one of the few people holding firmly on Kevin Stefanski, as infuriating as that game was, I like when Cam Thomas jumped off sides. I love Cam Thomas, wanted back. I had to leave the room. Like I was heated.
That was one of the worst. That was one of the worst. And just like everybody's face on the sideline was like, what? Oh my
it's
God.
Just the combination of Devin Bush holding on 3rd and 16, and then that I was just like, I livid. So look, with Gabriel, look, the best thing I can say about what he did on Sunday was there were 3 great throws that I can rip off the top of my head. The ball he threw to Cedric Tillman, which was resulted in the DPI, and the broadcast could not let go that the Jets caused penalties. Yeah, well, if they didn't penalize him, he would have had 2 hands. He would have caught that ball easily because it was literally right on the money.
It was a great throw.
The ball he threw to Jerry Jeudy off of the Ronnie Hickman interception was a great ball. I know there were people complaining that well, it's a moon ball or whatever. Look, man, he got the ball out fast. He allowed Jerry Jeudy to adjust to it. I wish we'd see more of that. These are the things I want to see from Dillon Gabriel is hey, these are the anticipation throws I was told you'd make. This is the anticipation stuff I saw in college that you could do. And then when he weirdly got on that, I don't know what it is when it's 4 minutes left in the second quarter and it's like Dillon Gabriel time where he just turns it on and had a couple good throws. And obviously the biggest one was the 24-yard pass to Harold Fannin.
Yeah.
Before he obviously lost his mind on before the field goal, which I can't explain. I mean, that's the part. If I was to be able to say, hey, those throws are really good, and these are things you can say, hey, that's a step forward. It is. The problem is there are a number of areas where he continues to step on his own, whatever you want to call it, where he takes, and we've seen this throughout, he takes horrendous sacks.
Yep.
That you just cannot take. Show me 69 combined starts between college and the pros.
Yeah.
Show it to me. I'm not seeing it when it's you have no timeouts and you take a sack before the end of the half. You not only take a sack with no timeouts that forces your field goal team to heroically save you, which they absolutely
was phenomenal.
Because if that doesn't happen, Dillon Gabriel just straight up cost you 3 points.
Yes.
That's horrible football. The one job you have in that situation, don't take a sack. And then 4th and 1.5.
Yep. You're talking about the fourth quarter, 10 minutes left.
Where, look, I didn't like the structure of the play call. I get it. They clearly had devised a play heading into the week and said, hey, if we get in this situation, we want to call this. You got Jerry Jeudy in the backfield, whatever. I don't like the fact that they're in gun. I don't like the fact that there's no running back there. Personally, I would have said, either hand it to Judkins or use Judkins as some sort of misdirect to hand it to somebody else, Malachi Corley or whatever, and try to get the 2 yards the best way you could. Now, maybe that play was a genius design and it could work. I've certainly seen. Look, I have seen Kevin Stefanski devise things where they got wide receiver in the backfield and worked beautifully.
Yeah.
But he takes the snap and almost immediately drops his eyes and gets ready to brace for impact on 4th and 1.5. The ball has got to come out. There's no scenario where you taking a sack works for you at all. You just lose. And that's where the stuff that just absolutely kills me with Dillon Gabriel. So those are the things where you absolutely just you kill me. And whatever progress you might be making, that can't happen. So why not? Why are we still rolling with him? Well, the answer's got to be pretty simple. Whatever Shedeur Sanders is doing, whether coming off the back injury and everything else, he's not where they need him to be to protect himself, which is the only answer I can come up with, because if he was, he'd be out there. If they thought he was good, he'd be out there, because God knows they're not going to keep the solution on the bench. The guy who can save all their jobs or whatever, however you want to phrase it, they can save this team is sitting on the bench waiting. And weirdly enough, one, I think partly is because the players actually do like Kevin Stefanski or respect him enough not to do essentially what the Bengals offense did to their defense. Yeah. You're not hearing anybody coming out and go either back channeling or otherwise going, we got to put Shedeur Sanders on the field. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So clearly there's something missing there. That doesn't change the fact that watching Dillon Gabriel is becoming a painful experience for me. And it's just awful. But that's the only answer. And as I when prefaced with the question of, how long do you give him? I said 2 games coming out of the bye week, and I was basically ready to be done after 1.
Yeah.
And to say, now you've got to try to get Shedeur as ready as quickly as possible, because we got to do something else. Maybe something's going to happen by the time we get to Baltimore. They don't have much of a pass rush and it will be slightly better, but it's just not better enough. And as we've talked about, whatever upside Dillon Gabriel has, it's not going to carry this team to success.
No,
it's not going to elevate the talent around him, or, he's not going to make guys just all around better. There were some slight improvements. Jerry Jeudy looked like Jerry Jeudy. Getting Cedric Tillman back, I do think makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's not good. And it does not look like it's not like, I'm not going to bury Dillon Gabriel forever, but I'm just saying right this second in this moment, it ain't it.
Well, look, and at the end of the day, if the Browns are going to have a successful offense, they need more from that position than what Gabriel can offer right now. And who knows? It likely needs more than what Gabriel will ever be able to offer. We've made the comparison countless times that he's Colt McCoy, he's Cody Kessler, he's one of these guys that can manage a game, be a spot starter, can keep the offense going and everything like that. But if you're game planning for him, you can neutralize what he does well, and you can basically take him out of games and completely nullify. Have an issue. Okay, perfect. Pete's back. All right.
That wasn't us, I don't think. Can you guys hear me? Okay, well, to answer your question, how much college am I watching? A ton. I'm watching a ton of college football. I will be watching a ton more of college football. I'll be watching Alabama and Oklahoma this week. I'll be watching Texas, Georgia. I'll be watching all of it. So yeah, I am all over. I'm all over college football right now in terms of what you're asking. And yeah, I'm trying to keep like I'm not making anything super definitive, but I'm certainly getting an idea of what's out there. Which is why I was talking about Mason Graham versus the 2026 class, which is not where I want to get my defensive tackles. I'm sure there'll be guys I like and everything, but obviously, you took a guy 5th overall. There's an expectation that you're going to be that guy, but still, you good?
Yeah, I'm good, dude. I'm sorry. I don't know what the hell's going on.
All right. So yeah, go ahead.
All right. So what I was saying before, that 4th and 1 with Gabriel, doesn't he have to be in shotgun? I mean, realistically, as slow as he's been to process things, do you want him getting under center and then dropping back, turning his back to the defense?
No, I want him handing the ball off.
Oh, straight up. Of course.
I'm not pretending. I'm not pretending we're doing something else.
Okay.
Now to your point, I don't think that's an unfair characterization to present that. But obviously, if you have Jerry Jeudy in the backfield, you're not presenting much of a legit run threat. So that's part of it. And again, it made they have done this in the past where it's worked. Off the top of my head, the Browns got the Ravens in a situation. I think it was that game where they won 13 to something against when Lamar Jackson was out for one of those games in the rain, and they put a receiver in the backfield. I think it was may have been DPJ or somebody that they stuck in the backfield, and he did a little angle route and scored on it. So I don't, I haven't seen enough of the design, but the other play and this is part of the problem with Dillon Gabriel as your quarterback. They had the throwback beautifully set up to Malachi Corley. Beautifully, and he missed it. And the problem you run into is it feels like death when you miss those plays with him. Whereas, and the comparison I will make is pre 2017, 2017 and 2018, before Baker Mayfield took the field, to when he was on the field, and they would make mistakes, but you were so empowered to believe that they were going to come back. They'd screw it up. Okay, they'll get the ball back and he's going to go right down the field. You don't have that with Dillon Gabriel. And obviously, look, it's not entirely Dillon Gabriel. It's unfair to put it all on Dillon Gabriel. But I am going to put that play on him because, my God, they designed it absolutely perfectly. Malachi Corley could have jogged. And by the way,
it's a revenge game for him. You ruined a revenge game.
Well, listen, he's not going to fix being a 3rd-round pick. I don't want to call what the Browns are getting out of him some miraculous thing where they've taken the Jets missed pick and revitalized him, because now, to be fair, he has now passed the total yardage he had with the Jets last year, but I don't think he's had 100 yards on the season yet. Yeah. And yet, the thing I will say about Malachi Corley, his impact feels much bigger than the fact that he has 90 total yards. I love the
notice him every Sunday. Every Sunday he makes a nice little flash play with the ball in his hands. Whether it's a end around or something, man. He's he's a package. He's a big kid. He's good with the ball in his hands.
Yes, and look, I've said this before. Kevin Stefanski has been desperately seeking this guy ever since he had Cordero Patterson with Minnesota. He has been looking for a guy like this. Malachi Corley scratches that itch, and they got him for free. And that's fine. He can be wide receiver 6 on your roster for the next 5 years, assuming Kevin Stefanski's here that long. I'm all for it. I love what he can give you, because it's just those little tastes. And what drives me nuts is the Steelers used to have guys that did this, would just do these little things that just drive you nuts. And that's fine. If he can play special teams, he can do that. And hopefully, if he can develop as a route runner and maybe do a little bit more, great. But I love what they're getting out of him. Now, we're talking about wide receiver 6 potentially. It's not like this is going to change the franchise. But nevertheless, I this is where I'm at. I'm excited about Malachi Corley on this team. With that, and obviously, I already mentioned Tillman. I like the fact that they have a little bit more size out there, because Tillman's a very large human being at wide receiver. Malachi Corley's a big guy. They have David Njoku. They have Harold Fannin. It really changes up the dynamic for what they have and what this team has to be right now, because so often what they have to play is bully ball and putting a whole lot of guys in the box. And Cedric Tillman's willing to be a blocker and do those type of things. So, yeah, it's not a great situation with Dillon Gabriel, but those are the little things I'm holding on to. So that's what I was going to ask you, because I'm steadfast in everybody's ready to get rid of Kevin Stefanski. And I've written and said, look, they're entirely justified if they want to fire him. Like, I can't sit here and go, he doesn't deserve, deserve or should or shouldn't. I'm just saying I wouldn't. My argument is, one, I have zero confidence that
they're going to
do better than him.
Yeah.
Even though, just by virtue of if they get a quarterback, the results will be better, but I think they will ultimately still be worse at the head coaching job, which is ultimately what I don't want. And I don't want to be with I don't think it will be that bad. I don't want to be the Tennessee Titans right now. I don't want to be on my second coach after this. And I said at the time, firing Mike Vrabel was a mistake. He ran out of talent, and that's how it goes. And you fix that and you coach. And what I'm seeing right now, this is sort of off topic, but like every team wants to fire their head coach right now. Every team. The Green Bay Packers want to fire LaFleur, who has been unbelievably successful for them. Or, Minnesota Vikings fans getting irrationally angry at Kevin O'Connell, who, by the way, I love Kevin Stefanski. I take Kevin O'Connell in a heartbeat.
Yeah, in a heartbeat. And I like Stefanski too. I'll say this. I have a ton of contacts in South Florida. To a man, every single Dolphin fan that wants the team to move on from Mike McDaniel has their eyes on Kevin Stefanski. Like, I'm telling you right now, there are 31 other fan bases that look at our head coach entirely different than we do as a fan base. And I will say this, because I, for the longest time, thought that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry should be attached at the hip, and they should ride out this Deshaun contract. I don't want to bring in a new coach and a new general manager and say, sorry, guys, you got one more year with this ridiculous money saddled over your head. We'll figure it out the year after that. I don't want to do that. I would rather them play this out. And if they can completely dig us out and get us on the track going forward, great. If not, 2027 is going to be my year when I have a cleaner salary cap that I'm going to find the coach and my GM and do all that stuff. Having said that, if they move on from Stefanski, I'll be okay. If they move on from Berry, I'll be okay. I at least understand arguments on either side of the fence here. I get it. I think Stefanski's a good coach, but sometimes you need a new voice. Sometimes you need new leadership to come in and kind of shake things up. And I've said this all along, if he loses the locker room, I can't do anything for him. That has not happened. Agreed.
So that's where I sort of sit there and go, that they're sticking with him. Like they have a ton of respect for him, seemingly to this point. They play for him. They play hard. They're just not good. Particularly on the offensive side of the ball. The other part about this, and the argument I would say that's the most compelling argument to move on, is the New York Giants / Tennessee Titans example. The Chicago Bears also fall into this trap, and obviously it will depend on where they end up in the draft and everything. But you make the decision, we're going to go get a quarterback. And you want to say, I want to hire the coach that's going to be here for the quarterback. I don't want to, decide after a year that this isn't going to work and make a change.
Yeah.
But the problem I think you run into with that is it immediately changes how you hire. You're not, and maybe they would surprise me in this respect. But I think everybody immediately goes, well, I'm not going to hire a defensive head coach. I'm not on that. I'm going to immediately, now I got to go back to the offensive side of the ball. I got to get somebody who can develop a quarterback, what I think can develop a quarterback.
Yeah.
And then and build it out from there, which immediately halves your pool, or theoretically, if you divide it between offense and defense. And that I think is a big trap for teams. That's how I think you end up with a Brian Callahan. That's how I think you end up. And I don't think Brian Daboll is necessarily a bad coach. I just think, I think the GM sucks. And some reason he's still got his job. But whatever, the bottom line is now you put yourself in this weird position where you're not thinking, I need to get the best head coach. You're thinking, I've got to pick a coach for the quarterback. And I think that's a trap. So that's where I sort of end up right back with Stefanski, where I'm like, I know he can coach quarterbacks. I know he can do that. As much as somebody will throw out, well, blah, 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 blah. Baker Mayfield in 2020 was phenomenal. I don't think he still touched the efficiency he had in that year. Obviously, Joe Flacco in 2023, Jacoby Brissett, all those guys were really good with Kevin Stefanski. He got game-winning drives out of DTR for people who think he's awful and PJ Walker and all those other things. So like that's where I sort of get in this thing is because I think you have to find a way to somehow get into a hiring process where you're not thinking in those terms. You are thinking, I have to get the best head coach, period. And like, obviously this is dated at this point, like, but one of the best quarterback developers in NFL history that never gets talked about is Marty Schottenheimer, who was a defensive guy, but he knew how to sort of handle that position. And that's where I sort of getting there, but that's a ways off. Now, who I do think needs to get fired, and not right this second, but at the end of the season, is Bubba Ventrone.
Yes.
I'm not a believer in midseason firings unless it's for cause. All you do is make more work for other people, and you still got 8 games to go. I get it. It makes everybody feel better. And look, I don't look at this as a 1-game problem for Bubba Ventrone. There's just too many games where special teams has just killed this team at points. And that's a position that's not necessarily the end of the world to sort of replace. That part, I mean, you go up 7-0, you feel great about your situation. All you're sitting there thinking is just let the defense get on the field.
Yep.
I feel great as long as I can get my defense on the field. And 14 points later, the defense still is not on the field. Like it's genuinely insane to have that happen where the defense does not touch the field and you're down 14.
Yeah. And I mean, you're down 14 and the Jets had more points than they had offensive snaps at that point. It was legitimately crazy. And, you want to talk about being, the offense, getting a little confidence and being able to build on something. How about they get a lead and hold on to it before you give the team, 15 points or 14 points before the offense even steps back on the field? Like that's brutal. And then after you had the 2 returns, then Dylan Sampson muffs a kickoff. So I don't know. That was as bad a special teams performance that I've seen in a really long time.
And it's the thing where it's like the margins are so thin, but still, it doesn't change the fact that you gave up 2 touchdowns in that span. And the answer to your question, to Marty Schottenheimer isn't Kosar. It's Drew Brees.
Phillip?
Drew Brees will straight up tell you, Marty Schottenheimer developed me. He put me on the bench when I needed to be put on the bench, and I wasn't ready to go out there. So,
and then Rivers got him a couple years later.
Yes. So, Marty Schottenheimer's track record is excellent. He also did some good stuff with the Chiefs, but whatever. But, look, you just can't kill your team like that. And, again, I'm not saying it needs to happen now. I think that's stupid. I think you end up getting into a bad habit where if it's the Ravens this week or if it's a game in 2 weeks and something else happens, you get in this thing where now who's the next guy who's got to get fired for some mythical concept of accountability. Well, you mentioned Andrew Berry. Personally, I think he's safer than Kevin Stefanski. I don't think there's anything worrying about him for all the reasons we mentioned. You not only drafted really well, you signed players like Malik Collins. You found guys after the draft like Aiden Huntington. You make whether or not Greg Newsome is going to be great for the Jaguars. He could be. More power to him if he is. If they sign him to a contract, he plays great. Yeah. Tyson Campbell is answered so many questions for you for this franchise moving forward. You got a corner that fits your scheme. You got a corner that's under contract for a while, that's cheap because the Jaguars just paid him for you. And it takes for the things we want, which is to just crush the offensive side of the ball in the offseason, not now having to answer the question at corner completely is done. You don't have to, you don't have to deal with it. And I think it also allows you the ability to re-sign Martin Emerson and see if he can figure it out. And hopefully he can recover from his Achilles, that he's young enough that it won't cost him his speed. And maybe that can be a value play for you. But I don't think Andrew Berry's in danger of anything. In addition to the fact that you got all these extra picks that you get to use because he was smart. So he crushed the draft and you came out with extra assets.
Yep.
I think he's I won't say bulletproof, but I don't think he's going anywhere. Yeah. And that's part of the reason I don't think Kevin Stefanski's going anywhere, because I think Andrew Berry's his biggest advocate. So we'll see on that front. But I don't worry in the least about Andrew Berry. That would actually piss me off because he crushed it this year for whatever you want to say. But I get it. You'd be able to say, well, the Deshaun Watson thing, but they didn't fire him for that then. Why would they do it now? So I think he's perfectly safe.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I want to touch back to the quarterback situation too. with Gabriel. So he's a third round pick. And obviously with a young quarterback, you worry about confidence, you worry about all that stuff. You don't necessarily want to pull him, but would it not do him a little bit of good to sit down, recalibrate, take a breath, and then not for nothing, what if Shedeur comes out and he's not good? And then you go back to Dillon Gabriel. Now all of a sudden Dillon Gabriel doesn't have the shadow of Shedeur looming over him where everybody's waiting to see this next guy. Like, I would almost think you're doing the kid a favor. It's such a stuck in the mud scenario that getting him out of that, even if it's just for a game, if not, obviously if Shedeur plays well, it'll be longer, but wouldn't that do him a little bit of good in the long run rather than just rolling him out into the front lines and just, catching it in the teeth?
I think there's merit to the idea that Dillon Gabriel would benefit from sitting for a minute and doing all the things you said. The problem is that it also invites the possibility that Shedeur is going to be in there for about a minute, get himself killed or suck, one or the other. Because look, man, I would love nothing more than him to go light up for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first start.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's realistic with what he's dealing with. So then you get into this whole thing. Well, and not that the Browns necessarily are going to think in these terms, but if just endless people complaining that Shedeur didn't get a fair chance and all this stuff, that they're continuing to screw him no matter what they do.
Yeah,
I just think if you're going to make that move, you got to do it. Get him out there, see what he can do for a sample size, and not just be like, well, we're going to see if this works and then yo-yo back. The other part is I think you're more likely. And again, I don't like this idea either. I think you'd be more likely to put Bailey Zappi in that scenario than Shedeur Sanders, because if they think Shedeur Sanders is ready enough to go, I think he's ready enough to go to multiple games as opposed to just sort of tune it up and see what happens.
Well, that's essentially my idea as well. What I'm basically saying is I'm not seeing enough positive juice from the Dillon Gabriel led offense that makes me think we couldn't possibly risk taking him out of the lineup and seeing what Shedeur has. I mean, they need a spark. Why would you not put in a talented kid at quarterback when you're getting almost nothing from your starter? And all of this, Shadeur's not ready. He's going to get himself killed, this, that, the other. Dillon Gabriel took 6 sacks on Sunday. Dillon Gabriel made plenty of rookie mistakes and did a lot of stupid stuff with the football. I fail to see where the risk is with Shedeur in the game as opposed to Gabriel. Gabriel's supposed to be the one with the high floor, right? He's not going to make the mistakes. He's going to be able to run the offense and process and all that stuff. I mean, I just don't get it, man. I really don't. And I would love to. They're both rookies. I would love to be like, okay, let's give Gabriel time. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. I just don't get it.
I think the answer to that is that's how not ready Shedeur is right this second. Yeah. That they're willing to do that. Because, again, they have every incentive to go the other way.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it's just not there yet. So that to me says he's really not ready. Because look, Kevin Stefanski, obviously Dillon Gabriel's the easy answer, but Quinshon Judkins wasn't there for basically any of camp. Get out there. And he was right. Harold Fannin, 3rd round rookie. These are the 2 guys who you've been able to say, I totally understand why Kevin Stefanski's slow playing them. I totally understand why he'd sort of favor veterans and guys who were there in camp in the case of Judkins. They were good enough where he's like, nope, we're good. And he was exactly right. So I'm inclined, obviously I can't see it. So I have no other choice, but I have reason to trust his judgment on this one, even if I would like Shedeur to be readier than he is. I think that's the biggest problem is I'm with you in the sense that I desperately want him to be ready so he can go out there and do something.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's talk about over to the running. We'll talk about the running backs a little bit. Quinshon, I want to say he had about 75 yards in the game on 22 carries, maybe 3.2 yards a carry. Dylan Sampson had 2 carries for -4 yards. I feel like Dylan Sampson has gone backwards for the last 5 weeks when it comes to running the ball. I don't know what it is about their inability to create anything for this kid. But I mean, we talk about all the time that he needs space, but man, there's just nothing to find for him.
Yeah, I thought this was his worst game so far of the season. I think some of that was footing. It looked really, and the rain got bad at points. It looked really awkward watching him get his footing on kick return.
Yeah.
In particular. But yeah, part of it, I've said all along, I think the more space they're able to create, the more dangerous he's going to be able to become.
Yeah.
But he is a 21-year-old rookie. Obviously, running back, you'd like to be able to say, get out there and do it. And obviously, game one, he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you 1,000% that like he had a rough game. There were a couple of attempts at pass protection that were just absolutely miserable. He got trucked.
Yeah.
It's the type of thing where, again, people get mad at me, and I'm not trying to compare him to Eric Metcalf in terms of talent. I'm trying to compare him in terms of usage. But like finding the right way to use him requires some other factors to sort of be in place to be able to do it correctly, to me. So I'm hoping that we get to a point where, like, I think Dylan Sampson gets better as everybody else gets better. And that's unfortunate. Look, he's a 4th-round rookie. I don't want to like put it all on him. He needs to ultimately be able to create his own success in some ways. But I do think he's a guy who's going to benefit by environment more than anything else, which, makes me wonder if there's a game where the Browns basically say, based on what we're doing, we're going to, not that I want him to be inactive, but they're going to be like, we're going to have him sit and put Raheem Sanders in there just to get another bigger back that can do some more of those things. I'm not advocating that necessarily. I just wonder if that's a thought process at some point, unless they can find a way to get him going, because there is ability there. But the problem is, to me, is the things he does well right now, the void is sort of being filled by Malachi Corley and some of these other guys that could do these little things that are in that same vein until he can be a more realized backfield threat.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree there. And I've said for a few weeks now, he needs to get stronger. He needs to just, get an NFL body and everything like that. I feel like he's a kid who's really going to shine year 2 and especially year 3. I had higher hopes for his rookie season, but it's like I don't sleep on the talent. That talent and ability is still there. He's still a special kid. He still has tons of ability, tons of playmaking ability, offers tons of upside. But with the offense, the way it's constructed right now, there's just so little space, and just, the 8-9 men in the box type of stuff, man. It's just like, it's tough sledding for anybody on that offense. There's just nobody's succeeding. Judy had a nice game, had 6 catches, but he had off 12 targets. That's horrible efficiency,
Yes. And part of the element here is like, Dylan Sampson's struggles sort of also magnify just how special Quinshon Judkins is.
Yeah.
Because his change of direction ability is insane for a guy who's 220 pounds or 225 or whatever he actually is. Like the ability to hit the line of scrimmage and then just say, nope, I'm turning right. And it's almost effortless how easily he is just to be able to make that turn and go. Obviously, the first play of the game, he makes a great cut. It's called back because Cam Robinson's holding. But like, that's really difficult for a guy like Dylan Sampson to sort of live up to. And that's part of the thing. Like, Quinshon Judkins is incredibly talented, and he's even having to work hard because of what we're seeing in the defense and because of we're not getting enough out of the passing game. And the fact that we've gotten a couple weather games has not helped either. The fact that we're in these things. And look, I don't like the fact that Dylan Gabriel in some ways seems to be completely allergic to water, but people in New Jersey said it was real bad. So I can't crush him too much. I'm hoping we get a little bit more confidence in terms of the ball coming out of his hand and throwing the ball this week. Hopefully the weather's not as bad and we don't get the precip, because like there were too many times where 1, the ball came out of his hand badly, or 2, he just wouldn't throw it and ran because he clearly didn't trust that he was going to be able to get his grip on it and throw the ball, which is, unfortunate. This is why hand size and these things are things that teams factor into these decisions. But I mean, it just, as much as I am, in favor of basically Dylan Gabriel not being in the game, there are certain elements where I have to sit there and go, okay, like this is just awful for him. The situation is not good. And that's just sort of where we're at.
Yeah. Well, again, I've I've been very critical of Gabriel, but I don't think anybody is pretending that he's in an offense that, would be running smoothly if it weren't for him. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of issues on this offense. There's a lot of layers to what's actually wrong with this offense. It's not just a quarterback thing. I just feel like his physical limitations compound every other problem that we have in the offense. It just yeah.
They do. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, again, I give him a little credit because we saw him stretch the field more. That needs to continue, and they need to hit on those plays. And look, they got 3 of them in that game. They were genuinely good, explosive plays, obviously one with a penalty. But those are 3 explosive plays. And what did they lead to? All 3 of them led to 17 points.
Yep.
Like straight up. We could talk about this forever, but like when the Browns create explosive plays, they score points. Like they don't need a ton of them. I would like a ton of them, but literally they had 3 explosive plays. The Cedric Tillman penalty, the Jerry Jeudy obviously was a touchdown, but it was an explosive play. And then Harold Fannin helped set up the field goal. All 3 of those drives end in points for the Browns. Like there has to be sort of an acknowledgement from Dillon Gabriel, and he's just got to sort of deal with the fact that he's going to get hit occasionally. And part of it, I made this point on Gang of 3. One of the pitfalls you have with a quarterback who has, or what they think it has, athleticism, and unfortunately Shedeur is not immune to this either because he thinks he's an athlete, is when you get rushed, you think, and you see Dillon Gabriel do this, he drops his eyes thinking, oh, I'll maneuver around, I'll figure my way out, and then I'll get my eyes back up and then find it. And there are a couple situations where he gets away with it. And then there's 4 Will McDonald sacks. Like, because it's a different game. It's the NFL. Like you're playing against NFL athletes, and
the closing speed
can't get away with that. So it's got to click for him. And I would like to think, watching the tape and seeing these things, it's going to, because they're missing plays that are there, that if I get the ball out on time and I do what I'm supposed to do, then I avoid these penalties. But he's like, when it's a designed rollout, so be it. Do your thing and roll out. When it's not, you have to treat this like you are a pocket passer, get your eyes up and get the ball out. And I think that's one of the things, like we love to talk about legs and all this other stuff and mobility. And look, Joe Flacco did the same thing when he was in there for the Browns, unfortunately, drop his eyes. But if he's willing to sort of contrast that, I get it. He's going to get hit. But as you said, he took 6 sacks doing it his way. That it hopefully opens up the field. The ball comes out, gets more plays down the field. And again, if they create explosive plays, they score points. It's simple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only do they create explosive plays, they score points, but you give the defense a little reprieve. I mean, the defense has been, playing from behind all season long. I can't imagine their level of frustration when they look around that unit and know that this is a playoff level unit, and just the inability for the offense to do anything is just crazy. So what do we think about the way the offensive line played? I mean, we do this every week, Pete. It's like we talk about how bad every layer of the offense is, and then we eventually get to the defense. We can talk about the bright side. I mean, what kind of bright side do we have with this offensive line right now?
Interior played okay. Tackles did not. I mean, that was basically it. And the problem you run with the offensive line is it's not going to get better. It's going to be this. Yeah. Not to say there won't be games where the tackles play better, but like there's no upside for this line. The youngest guy on it is 29. Yes. Or has turned 30. I don't know if he's quite turned 30, but like the youngest guy is going to be is right about 30. So, and they made the bet, other than DeJuan Jones obviously getting hurt, that they could sort of muddle their way through this thing for a year and then take the big plunge into making a whole bunch of investments where they have picks and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
That part was a bad bet. It's a frustrating bet. And the only reason you can get away with it is because the picks you made look really good. If not for that, then it'd be very easy to be like, this is a ridiculous situation and they should fire the GM.
Yeah.
That's your saving grace is, well, the draft picks are working. But like, so you look at it and you sit there and you go, the offensive line is not going to get better. It's going to basically vary between either maybe slightly above average to below average to somewhere in that range. So other things have to make up the difference. And it's the guys who have upside. It's quarterback, it's receivers, it's basically the skill. The skill has the upside because they've got young players that can get better. So that's that's unfortunately the equation they've got those guys have to sort of pick this thing up. And again, we saw glimpses of that, but it was against a bad Jets team. Like, I want to see those type of glimpses. If the Browns are gonna lose, I want to see more of those against like the New England Patriots the week before or the Baltimore Ravens this coming week, because this is sort of the, you came out of you lose this game and your reaction is like, man, that was awful. I hate this. Like all these things. And you go, well, the Jets won, the Dolphins won, the Saints won.
Yep.
And the Houston Texans won. You're like, well, it's not all bad, because this is sort of the weird, this loss sort of puts you in this weird mindset of, well, all of a sudden they have 4th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure on some, like the way they stacked the deck, I'm sure there had to be some way they thought this was a real possibility, and maybe they were okay with it. Whether or not ownership's ultimately going to be okay with it remains to be seen. But they stacked the defense in a way where like you can almost sit there and go, was this the point in some ways? Like, I don't think Evan Stefanski wants to lose, but because you can see it on his face when they do. But there's some element to this where it's like you came up, like if you were playing Madden, like you could see yourself doing this. Where you're like, I'm going to load up this side of the ball and then, screw the other side of the ball. So I get really good on one side, and then I get the draft picks I want on the other side to sort of like make this work. It's a painful, gut wrenching element to work through. But that's the other part about this is I keep going back and forth because I don't think they want to lose. I think if they could win their next 8 games in a row, they'd take that. Obviously, that's not realistic. And part of me wonders if they didn't sort of like think in terms of manipulating this in a way slightly to get them sort of in position and naturally fall into, hey, our defense is really good. And if we really overload on offense, that all of a sudden we're really good real fast.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'll kind of catch us up and balance things out. I got to tell you, my biggest issue with what I see with the team right now. I mean, we talked about this on draft day. I think I texted you immediately after the Gabriel pick. I didn't see it. I was furious about it, quite frankly. I absolutely loved the draft up until that pick. I admittedly was a Shedeur and Jackson Dart guy. I like both. Didn't even consider Gabriel. Didn't think there was any. My problem, Pete, is that from where I'm sitting is that Gabriel seems to be that handpicked guy for Kevin Stefanski, right? What I don't like, I knew on draft day this wasn't going to work. I knew on draft day that he doesn't have the physical skill set to be anything more than a long-term backup. I feel like they're treating this kid like he's a first-round pick. And like, if they're not trying to tank, I don't know what the hell they're looking at. That's my biggest indictment of Kevin Stefanski. Baker wasn't good enough for you. I get that. That's okay. You took a swing on Watson. Great. I get that. This was an offseason where we needed something of an answer at the position. And the biggest investment that we made was Dylan Gabriel.
Well, this is where this is what the stuff that gets me starting to wonder about their thought process.
Yeah.
They go through free agency. They obviously trade for Kenny Pickett.
Mm-hmm.
And then free agency comes through and they're like, we know the guys they tried to get and we know why they didn't get them.
Yeah.
Whether it was Daniel back to earth Jones or Justin Fields or some of these other quarterbacks, Mac Jones, for example. They talked to all these guys and then ultimately got to a point where they were down to Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers. Like the Browns and the Steelers were the last two teams to get quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You get Joe Flacco. Cool. We get the whole, and I thought Joe Flacco would do better than he did based on what I saw.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, and like in the draft, I liked Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, and my third guy was Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart to me needed a year. Jalen Milroe needs several years potentially.
Yeah.
So part of me wonders, did you take Dylan Gabriel because it was a low risk investment in the third round for a guy you could put on the field? And that if it doesn't work, okay. It didn't work with the third round pick who, we can at least get on the field. And do I think they thought it would go this badly? No. Yeah. But this is stuff where I sit there and wonder to myself, did they take a guy in a low enough pick? They picked 4 players already. And by the way, draft day, Dillon Gabriel completely erased any and all goodwill on Harold Fannin. Like, Harold Fannin was the funniest pick of that draft because everybody's like, yep, love it, moved on.
Yeah.
Then we're done. What are we doing next? And then Dillon Gabriel and everybody's pissed. Yeah. But there's a part of me that wondered, again, I don't think they expected it to be this bad. There's part of me that wondered, like, we can get a guy that steps in right now. We have to pay much to get him. And if he sucks, okay, we're going to take our big swing elsewhere. And then they get to come back and take the project guy in Shedeur Sanders. Like, that makes more sense to me in the sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy theory way where you're like, I can maneuver this thing to work exactly how I want with a quarterback that's reasonable enough to lose with or try with. And again, if Dillon Gabriel fails, I don't think he's going to be out of the league fail. I think he's going to be long-term.
He's going to have a long career. He's a smart kid. Yes.
The preseason is in trouble for the next 6 years.
Yeah.
Get ready. but like it does set up in a weird way where you're like, yeah, I crossed my backup quarterback off. I took a flyer on a quarterback, but now I get an opportunity to go get the guy I really want. And hopefully, obviously that has to work itself out. And I get to go whole hog on the offense. And all of a sudden I get to transform this thing. And again, I'm going to reiterate this one more time. I don't think they thought it would be this bad, but it does look weirdly engineered in a way that you can at least sort of sit there and go, did they think maybe this was a possibility and that they were okay with it?
Yeah. Like, not only did it go bad, but let's at least take advantage of how bad this has gone. Like, I can get that. I just, at the end of the day, Pete, if this isn't like an open, like we're trying to tank scenario, it makes me question the guys that are evaluating the quarterback position. Because, like, say whatever you want about Shedeur, ignore Shedeur. All right. Let's not even talk about the potential that he's coming in. Okay. My issue is the draft capital, and we put more draft capital into Gabriel than we did to Kenny Pickett. Obviously, Flacco was a free agent. Obviously, Shedeur was the trade up at the 5 and the 6, right? But we put all of our assets at that position, or mostly into Dillon Gabriel. It's the lowest ceiling of any player they drafted, and it's not even close.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you on that. Yeah. But here again, what did you give up to get him? Give him Amari Cooper's rotting carcass. Like, that's the other part.
First of all, you know how excited we were about that trade before it became Dillon Gabriel, Pete? All right? Don't you play that 2020 nonsense, bro. It was a terrible deal. I would have kept Amari forever over that.
It did, look, it genuinely did feel – it did sting to be like, this is what we got for trading Amari Cooper. Yeah. But that's where I'm sitting here and go, the thing that sticks – look, there are common threads that both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders have that I do think are things that the Browns like. I think they like the fact that those guys started a ton of football games. Yeah. Experience, I think, was valuable. But, like, beyond that, and again, I think there are people who think that Kevin Stefanski wants a Dillon Gabriel-style quarterback, just a better version. I don't. I think he's way more open-minded to that. Obviously, like Cam Ward, like Jackson Dart, and those other things. But if you – and we'll use Jackson Dart as the example. The Browns could have traded up for him. Mm-hmm. They really wanted to. They could have. Now, they determined it was cost prohibitive. Okay. I'm not even going to argue with it because I know what they would have lost to do it. The players that are really good on this team, they would be gone.
Yeah.
But again, here's the thing. If you thought Jackson Dart would need to sit a year, then maybe your thought process is let's wait a year and get a quarterback who might not be ready. And again, this could all blow up in their face if they end up out of position and don't get the guy they want. But it's just, unfortunately, this is the thought exercise this team is putting me through, because I'm trying to make sense of what they're doing, to why, and don't get me wrong, Jim Schwartz is the squeakiest wheel you could have as a coordinator. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I would have been happy with this, from saying, please give me Abdul Carter, to then please give me Mason Graham, and then please give me a linebacker who's going to be in the middle, and you end up with your first 2 picks on defense. like you lose JOK for potentially career-ending injury, though I hope that's not the case, and are immediately made whole versus offense where you've got so little on that side of the ball and you've got so much work to do. This is what it does, and so that's where I sort of I at least wonder about these things, and it could just be a really bad idea that may work out simply because they hit on those picks.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep doing our little team by team breakdown thing. Let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball because that's always the fun one to talk about. And instead of starting with defensive line and Myles Garrett like we always do, I want to start at linebacker, and I want to talk about Carson freaking Schlesinger playing on a high ankle sprain and just being a dude, man. I am head over heels for this kid. He is an absolute stud. And I granted, like, he had the bye week and everything like that. He's coming off an ankle sprain. You're 2-7. I love that energy. I love that passion. I'm such a big fan of this kid.
This is what it does. Like, you're sitting there going, man, I wish we invested in offense. But I absolutely look. I wanted to get more offense.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get premium positions with that second round pick.
Yeah,
and I absolutely love everything this kid does. Like, he has absolutely blown away every expectation you have for him. And I don't know, like, degrees of high ankle sprain. Seemingly he must have gotten like the most minor high ankle sprain possible because it was really strange because, one, obviously you got a sort of a hint that things might be okay when Kevin Stefanski's like, we're not going to put him on our IR. We think he's going to be okay. What really stood out to me wasn't wearing a boot at the Cavs game. Like, I would have figured you're walking into a basketball arena, like all the walking that, like, either that or he maybe has, mutant DNA or something. But, like, then you go through the week and you're like, okay, he's not practicing on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. You're like, yeah, normal. And then limited participation on Friday. You're like, yeah, whatever. Questionable. There's no way. They're going to go with Diabate and move on. You're like, he's active. Okay, maybe they're going to roll with Diabate and maybe get a few snaps of Carson pressure. Nope, starting. 5 solo tackles,
whistle.
Half a sack, and just crushes it. Like, and again,
he had the blitz on the first drive against Fields, where Fields threw that, basically prayer to Isaiah Davis in the to stop him on third down. Like, he's everywhere. He's everywhere.
Yeah, and that's where I sit here and go, maybe he wins Defensive Rookie of the Year, but is there a reason he may not end up in the Pro Bowl? Because he does everything you'd expect of a Pro Bowl linebacker. He's clearly one of the best players on the defense, on a defense that is good. It's not like this is like, the 99 Browns where the one linebacker's crushing it and everybody else looks like crap. It's a defense with Myles Garrett, Malik Collins, Mason Graham, so on and so forth. And this guy still stands out. And obviously, I think part of the reason he does stand out because they have those other guys. But, like, I couldn't believe when the Jets tried to run read option and Justin Fields kept it. You're just like, well, he's done. And Carson Schlesinger immediately takes him out. So, like, and this is part of the thing where, like, if Carson Schlesinger or some of these other guys didn't want to play, he could have been like, no, I'm not good. I'm not ready. But, like, they clearly want to play and clearly want to win. So whether that is just his own sort of work ethic and he's always going to be that guy, I think that's probably part of it. There is some element to this where, like, because I always hear this argument, like, this team's not fighting and all this stuff. Are you kidding me? Like, Carson Schlesinger is clearly fighting for every chance he can get to try to get on the field, help his team and win football games. So, yeah, I absolutely love him. And, the talk of, like, put the C on the jersey and all that, I'm 100%. I'm right there with you. And, Myles Garrett is sort of an erudite in terms of his leadership. I think Carson Schlesinger's got what, the team needs as far as a real leader in the middle of the defense. I take it as a huge sign when Grant Delpit basically said, yeah, he can do it. Because again, I continue to think that Grant Delpit is the barometer of that locker room.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's the 3 levels of leadership there. You got Myles, you got Schlesinger, and you got Delpit in the back end. It's a nice little nucleus.
I think Myles Garrett is obviously a very smart dude and knows a lot. I think Grant Delpit's voice carries more weight in terms of what I listen to, in terms of what I think is more true to how the rest of that locker room feels than more than anything. Because Myles Garrett, again, a little bit of an erudite sensibility. He's a little bit more of a loner. Not that he's a bad teammate or anything. Just he is on such a different level.
He's
than
a
everybody
unique
else.
cat. He's not your typical, meathead gym rat. Miles is a unique dude.
So, like, between Schlesinger and then Delpit, like, they've got something going with those two. And yeah, like, I cannot say enough positive things about Schlesinger. And like, for as bad as this team is in the standings, like, and again, this game was insanely grating on me to watch at points. I love watching the defense play. I love watching that kid play.
Yeah, agreed. And the D line was active again this week. Miles had a sack. Alex Wright went down with injury, and they made a couple of DN moves. Brought a couple of DNs on the practice squad. Have you heard anything about the Wright injury? I mean, I'm sure we'll find out full details, or at least some details tomorrow. But that can't be a good sign.
Probably not, but it may not mean. I think if they were going to put him on IR, they would have.
Yeah, it could be shots fired at our boy Cam Thomas. That's
which is a shame.
He might be short for his time in Cleveland after that.
I desperately hope he's back next year because he played well other than that stupidity. But like it does suggest to me that Alex Wright is going to be out at least for a week or so. We'll see. Obviously, tomorrow is the first week we're going to see, or the first day we're going to see injury report and participation and stuff. But like, it was interesting that like on the same day or the same game where he injures his quad, former Browns safety MJ Stewart tore his quad. That was immediately like going through my head. Oh my God. Like, which is not like the worst injury ever of all of the injuries you can have. That's actually one that heals reasonably well and everything.
Yeah.
But obviously would be season ending and unfortunate because he's played really well. And obviously he's trying to fight for a contract and everything else. So obviously the Browns would like him to be healthy. He's been really good as a run defender. We're getting more life out of him. He's still not a very good pass rusher, but like he's still a valuable piece of this defense. And they get much thinner without him. Obviously they traded Joe Tryon and they've got Cam Thomas. They've got Myles Garrett, obviously, but like then it becomes who's the next guy. If it's KJ Henry or they want to put Sam Kamara out there. I don't think they do. I think they're content with him inside, whatever. Yeah. But like there were points in that game where like they put defensive tackles out there, which I don't hate, by the way. They can do some of that stuff. Mason Graham was out there. They got in some 50 front stuff, which is a little bit of an interesting tweak.
I was going to say, though, couldn't Aiden Huntington go out wide a little bit, too? Isn't that in his skill set?
He can. The other guy I would put out there, it wouldn't be in a true 5, but 4-4-I would be Mike Hall and see what he can do in that capacity because he's athletic enough. The issue you run with those guys is it's just length. Aiden Huntington's stubby, and that's a little bit of a challenge, and the Browns really like length on the ends. The one I was surprised they didn't sign, honestly, I thought they'd just promote Julian Okwara, but yeah, we'll see. I don't hate KJ Henry. I just don't know what he's going to really give you. And it just shortens your rotation, unfortunately.
Yeah. How about, the secondary, if you look at, Justin Fields' passing numbers, obviously the secondary did a bang up job on Sunday, but, outside of a, couple, broken plays where Breece Hall made something happen. The defense had the clamps down, man. They played as good as they do just about every Sunday. It's just a good unit. They don't give up much, but we see it time and time again every week in the second half. They've bent enough and they start to break,
I was disappointed with the defense in the second half. You had an offense that could not throw. Just couldn't do it. Garrett Wilson leaves the game. He's not coming back, and what little he was in there for was shut down. They beyond the big play to Breece Hall, which I cannot believe somebody was not specifically responsible for just taking away. He's the one other guy who can like hurt you in that situation. Just find him and make sure he's not killing you. They just kept giving up yards. Like they even got in a 50 front and were getting pounded a little bit. That was a little bit disappointing. It felt like it should have been a game where they just absolutely destroyed him. And to their credit, it was just uneven because they would make big splash plays and then give up plays or commit penalties. Like, when they were trying to get the ball back at the end, you're like really fired up because like they had 2 tackles for loss, and Carson Schwester almost takes the mesh and could have been a fumble and all this other stuff. And then, like, they obviously give it the play. And that part of me is like, Jim Schwartz is doing what I want him to do and what I want him to use the rest of the season for, and that he's trying to see what else the defense can do and try to find things that can incorporate into their identity, which I think is really positive. I think they need to figure out those other things. But the risk is obviously the Breece Hall touchdown, where you get burned for the big one, and that's a game-changing play and ultimately the game winner. And then, look, do I have any faith that Dylan Gabriel was going to drive down the field and score a game-time touchdown? No. But I would have liked to have seen him fail rather than just letting the Jets just kneel out the game. Like, that's the disappointing part. Okay, fine. Let the offense fail. I can live with that. But, like, that's where it's tough. They don't get the ball back is just brutal. So, like, look, some of this is defense. The defense is there are young components to the defense. Mm-hmm. There are some rookies. There are guys on there that don't have a ton of experience. But, obviously Devin Bush is a veteran. That one hurts quite a bit. And just some of the mistakes they make are just really unfortunate. And they've got to find a way to get better. I still like that unit. But there are times where, like, a couple times this season where I've just sort of, like, been, like, let down because they're not out there for a million plays. They barely played in the first half. It wasn't like, oh, man, we're exhausted. We played 70 plays. I think they played, like, almost 50 in that whole game. So, like, that's not an excuse. And they rotate enough guys that, like, this isn't a situation where Myles Garrett is out there, like, dying on the field either. They've got enough guys that they can keep them fresh. So, again, this is a game where I thought the Browns were not good enough in all 3 phases in a game where they could have easily been really good in at least 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'll say in defense of the defense, the Breece Hall screenplay that went for the touchdown, that was a perfect time call. I mean, it caught us in a blitz. That was just a absolute bad call versus the right call versus, I feel like the defense played well enough to win. They should have won. You gave, 14 points on special teams and all that jazz. I mean, it's like, I agree with you. You would like to have seen the defense slam the door in the second half and not give up any points. But, I mean, we lost by 7. We gave them 14 on special teams. It's tough to say that this one's on the D, but I get what you're saying. Though it was definitely a disappointing second half. And
not only that, but obviously they set up the offense for 7. Ronnie Hickman gets the interception. He's got his second career interception against the Jets. He really likes playing the Jets so far. And Ronnie Hickman right now is saying, please give me a contract extension. And I'm here for it because he's playing better. He's one of the guys who's growing and developing over the course of time. I think he's getting more confident. This week coming up will be a big one for him just because of the ways that the Ravens can sort of test you. But, like, I like the trend he's on in terms of his play.
Well, let's talk about Baltimore because – to my knowledge, now they're on a 4-game streak, right? Are they 5-6 right now? Are they 4-6?
I thought there was 4-6.
Yeah, 4-6, right? And Pittsburgh's 5-4 now because they are on the 3-game losing skid. So Baltimore this Sunday, they beat Minnesota by 8 on Sunday, and we figured that'd be a decent game. Flores has historically given Lamar some issues there. What do we got for Sunday? I know I have a very low bar set for what the offense is going to be able to do. What do you think?
The weird thing is the Browns are really good against the division at home. Like one of the things that I will defend Kevin Stefanski for the hilt on is people would get so mad at Browns coaches because they suck in the division. He consistently goes like 1-1 every year against the Ravens and the Steelers. Like they steal one at home and they win at home and then lose on the road. Mm-hmm. Like they play them weirdly well, and the defense really plays them well for the most part. Obviously, the wheels fell off at the end of the first game in Baltimore, but they were with them step for step for quite a while in that game before Baltimore just had enough time to finally come up with stuff to get them, and obviously took advantage of a corner that's no longer here. I think they're going to play well. The Ravens' offensive line is bad, and the Browns' defense is playing well. Mason Graham coming off, he's had 2 really good games out of his last 3. The thing that really stood out to me on Sunday was his hands. he was able to, particularly as a run defender, just get underneath guys and just drive them back and take control of the line of scrimmage and make some big plays. But he's also it wasn't like he was bull rushing. He was slipping by blockers because they were so worried about him with the power that he was able to slip by. So that part is good. Malik Collins could be a good player, in this. I suspect Mike Hall is going to be deployed in this because he's been really good against Lamar Jackson because of his raw speed. Myles Garrett, obviously. And I'll be curious to see what they do on the other end, because the one weakness they sort of have is I love Isaiah McGuire, but his game is not running down Lamar Jackson. And I don't think Alex Wright is either. So how do they answer that? And is that why they signed KJ Henry? Because he's a little bit lighter on his feet and can run. Is that sort of the thought process where maybe you get a little bit more speed there? And I think Cam Thomas is going to play quite a bit in this. And then obviously Carson Schwarzenegger, hopefully getting a little bit healthier. They need his speed and range. The backers in general, they need those guys to play well. And then it's just a question of, obviously a little bit different than last time, Tyson Campbell versus Greg Newsome in the first matchup. The receivers for the Ravens aren't playing as well as they were, as they have in previous years. There's a little bit more trouble there. And Grant Delpit was great against Mark Andrews in the first matchup. That side of the ball, the Browns are pretty good. And I've yet to see anything to suggest Derrick Henry is good at this point. It seems like he's just really struggling. So that gives me the thought, nothing would be more Browns to lose to the Jets
and then beat the Ravens,
and then sit there and go, yeah, we're thinking about draft position, and then go out and smack the Ravens. This is just that. And part of me expects that for that exact reason, just to mess with me.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. And I mean, I don't think anybody looks at this game on Sunday is like, oh man, I'm really worried that the defense isn't going to be able to contain Baltimore. The worry is the offensive side of the ball. The worry is, what are we going to be able to do against that Ravens defense? Because to be perfectly honest with you, our inability to throw the ball is going to be even magnified to a greater degree this weekend, because the Baltimore front is so physical. They always give us issues. We always struggle up front against Baltimore, in my opinion. And I don't, if we're not able to run the ball, just like every other Sunday, I mean, we're going to be, up a creek without a paddle, so to speak.
Well, the thing with the Ravens is they don't rush the passer well, and that might give you some hope for the passing game. And the other part is, I don't think they're very good on the edges. They obviously traded for Draymond Jones. Maybe that upgrades them a little bit. Their strength is the D tackles. Obviously, the problem is the Browns' strength is their interior as opposed to their tackles.
Yeah.
But if they can get out on the edges, like Mike Green is playing more, okay, I'll run at Mike Green. If it's Draymond Jones, if it's some of the other guys they have on the outside, I don't necessarily feel overly worried about getting out there. Obviously Roquan Smith played really well in the first matchup, thanks to Joe Flacco in a lot of ways. He could be a potential problem for this if they have a similar game plan, because they did a really good job of taking away the flats. But I think if they can, like I said, if they can get to the off tackle, essentially, if they can create runs that sort of it may be the same situation where Quinshon Judkins is able to attack right downhill and then decide where he wants to go at that point. Maybe, but I have the same worry you do. That'll be one of the first things I'm looking for is where are they going to be able to find any kind of relief to be able to do that? Using tight ends. Obviously, Cedric Tillman gives them a little bit more heft in terms of a perimeter blocker, but is it trying to come up with crack toss type action and stuff to try to get Judkins a little bit more space? I don't know the answer to that, but that is obviously a terrifying prospect, in addition to the fact that, Kyle Hamilton, with the addition of Aloy Gilman.
Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton's a little bit more
of a
better
used at this point.
Yeah, he can be more of a problem. He's been better since that move because it frees him up to be used. And obviously he's been a nightmare for the Browns. That's the stuff that I get worried about. This is the game where you could potentially see Dillon Gabriel give up the big play in terms of pick six and all this other stuff, which is obviously, him. He's done an okay job protecting the football, but he's not making plays. And are we going to now get to a point where now he's going to force it problematically.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, and that is the one worry with him is like we all keep calling for more shots downfield, for more aggression, pushing the ball to open things up underneath a little bit, just like make the defense respect that you can attack every corner of the field. That way you can open things up underneath, and everybody's not going to be in a phone booth. But with that comes the inherent risk, and our line hasn't been as good as we wanted it to be. So pressure's been getting to Gabriel. So like these are the little things that, could turn into turnovers and game-changing plays and pick sixes and things of that nature. But again, this is what we're doing. We're developing a young quarterback. We need to see him in these situations. We need to see him deal with this adversity and find answers and find ways out of these problems,
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, I watched a good amount of that Vikings game, and like, the NFC North right now, in terms of quarterback play, seems to be Jared Goff and three madmen. But JJ McCarthy is legitimately out of his mind playing quarterback at times. Like, I have no idea what he's doing, but there are plays to be had, and he's not making them. The Ravens defense is not that good. So it's an opportunity. Here again, can Dillon Gabriel do something with it? I have very little faith. I'm hoping, like, again, he's going to reach that epiphany where he's finally gets into this mindset of, screw it. If I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to go out just throwing the damn thing around
in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, and like not like stupidly and not just chucking it blindly like he did the Pats game. I mean, like, good shots, take your chances, trust your guys, and let them make plays for you, or don't, and sort of just wither away and give way to the other guy. And like that's why I said 2 games. I hope Shedeur is working his butt off to get ready to go. Because if it continues to be that bad, that's the pivot point. And obviously I can't see what Shedeur is doing, but like, that's where I'm sitting here going, okay, let's go.
Yeah. I was going to say, at what point do you think you're going to be like, you know what? I don't really care what Shedeur is doing. Let's see what he can do. Like, mix it up, give him the opportunity, see if you can give this offense a spark. All right. Well, let's talk about, let's talk about the Jaguars a little bit. I am under the impression. Well, actually, I'm not under the impression of anything. I don't know who they have this week. I'm going to look that up real quick. But what an absolute blank show to lose that lead and lose a game to Davis Mills and the Houston Texans like that.
Finally. They have toyed around with this nonsense for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Weeks and weeks. 4-2 in one-score games, Pete. What kind of bullshit is that?
Yeah, they should have lost to the Raiders, should have lost to the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. They just keep getting away with it, and finally they got beat in a game where they should have handily won. I think they were up 3 scores at one point. Houston is not good.
No.
And they gagged it. And I think they've got a reasonable matchup this week. I don't think it's
we got the Chargers. I like that.
Well, I want to like it, but like I want
Justin Herbert not to show up.
Yeah, well, they don't have any tackles, and that obviously was good enough to beat the Steelers. But like, yeah, I mean, I would like to think that the Chargers are going to do well. Unfortunately, it's in Jacksonville. That's a long trip. You never know. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's one really good quarterback in that game, and then there's Trevor Lawrence, which he always gives me hope that he's gonna drag his team down and hopefully lose a game. Like, but the other problem is, and we'll see what the injury report says. Brian Thomas didn't play this past week.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll be available this week. And all of a sudden you've got, obviously they made the trade and got Jacoby Myers. Yeah. And Parker Washington does some things for them. But obviously it's a big difference when you had Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas. And if those guys are both still out, that's a notable challenge and makes it easier for the Chargers, who play good defense. The Chargers do play defense, which is the one thing that I'm holding out hope for, that they're going to cause, 2 or 3 pick sixes or whatever, that they can manage to get that win, and we can get on the right track in terms of draft pick getting down to below 15 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, right. Well, we're close. They Chargers handle business. Jacksonville's down to 5-5. I'll take that, man. I'll take that. What were they, like 4-2 at one point?
Well, yeah, and then they've still got, and this is where I need Daniel Jones to start picking it up. They've still got them twice.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, and I also need DeForest Buckner to start getting healthy. But, yeah, I mean,
I thought Buckner was out for the year.
I thought he was just I'm not sure. I only saw IR. I praised that out for the year because
you know what? I could have equated IR for a season long thing rather than the 4-game thing. So hopefully you're right. Hopefully it's just 4 games. He's back in time for Jacksonville.
But like, obviously 5-4 is not where I thought this team would be. I like the direction they're headed in. It seems to be the direction I thought they'd head in because I just don't think they're very good. And obviously a lot of that comes down to Trevor Lawrence. So I'm hoping, because nothing would be sweeter than if the Browns are going to be this bad, they get themselves in a position to take a quarterback, and then they're in position to take one of those premium receivers, and then we get this thing rolling from that standpoint and start really addressing the offensive line, hopefully through free agency, and then draft picks, and just get after it.
All right. Well, we started approaching this topic the last couple weeks, but I think we should probably maintain this one because there's a lot of time left in the college football season. There's a ton of time left in the pro season. But as we see in the chat, there's a ton of talk about quarterbacks already. And there's a lot of guys that we assume are going to wind up going back to school, which I think the majority of them are. I think the only one that we are like locked into, this guy's going to be available and this guy's likely to be worthy of a top 5 pick, is Fernando Mendoza. But I know you and I both like Ty Simpson quite a bit.
I love what I see from Ty Simpson.
Love what I see from him.
He's got like I've heard people compare. Well, I've heard both quarterback compared to Kirk Cousins, which I find strange.
Yeah,
Ty Simpson. Look, I get the limitations with starts. I am Mr. Please get more experience guy. He's got some dog in him in terms of how aggressive he is as a passer, and just so many of his passes are down the field, and he's good. He's thrown 1 pick all year. I cannot wait for him to go against that Oklahoma defense, because that defense is legit. And they don't like Alabama does not run the ball well. It's all on him for the most part. And he's not that athletic, but man, and that's it. His mobility reminds me of Baker Mayfield in terms of it's not really good, but it's just
feisty.
Yes, it's
feisty. Yeah,
just a little bit of foot move. He's good in the pocket. He does a lot of good things. And obviously, I'm gonna have to go back and watch all of this. But what I see from him, man, I love watching this dude play. I just like the way he plays it. And obviously, look, they've got weapons. Yeah, Ryan Williams and Jeremy Barnard are really good with that offense. But man,
he looks like an NFL passer. He layers the ball, man. He hits every level of the field.
And again, I'm way out early on this. He strikes me as a guy that Kevin Stefanski could be like, man, I really like him. Again, he could end up playing 7 more football games. They've got 3 in the regular season. He can end up in the SEC championship. And then if they go all the way in the CFP, that's 3 more games. So that's 7 more football games. I'll be interested to see, these are the tests. He's got Oklahoma. I think they play who they got Eastern Illinois. I think after that, the real throw out the record books for that one type.
And then Auburn, right?
Auburn, which on the road is tricky.
Oh yeah.
And then potentially the SEC championship, which could be against Georgia or somebody like that. Like, he's got some tests, and then obviously the playoffs, all bets are off. So I really like him. And then on the other hand, I genuinely do wonder how much of Fernando Mendoza is a product of Curt Cignetti. He's just really, really good at what he does. But at the same time, man, I see him make some really impressive throws.
Well, yeah.
He's really talented. And obviously, look, it's easy to like him. He's 6'5", 225. He's got all those things. He throws the ball, incredible arm. He can be really accurate. He can be really, really effective. There's a lot to like with him as well.
I'll tell you what I find most intriguing about Mendoza, what I really like about Mendoza, I feel like there's a lot of robotic to his game, where he's just like, he's pre-programmed. He's just like, he's so sound and he's accurate, and he does all these things. When I watched him play, he looks like, he reminds me of Jared Goff with feet. And that's so intriguing to me. Because I love Goff. I think I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's a phenomenal passer, one of the better pure throwers in the game. I really think Goff is that good. And throwing in the feet on top of all of that is a super intriguing combination for me. And I like that he's 6'5", 230. I love Ty Simpson, but like listed at 6'1", 210 is
Listed
yeah.
6'2". Listed 6'2".
Yeah.
That'll be the question.
Yeah,
What is
and
the
that's my thing with him. I love what I see on tape, but I also, man, I'd like to, especially if I'm going to use a premium pick like that, I would like a little bit bigger of a package. You know, just like I want that body to be able to absorb. You know, I don't want to worry that every time he gets hit, he's going to get crushed.
But that's what I like about Ty Simpson. You hit on it with Mendoza. It feels robotic.
Yes.
Ty Simpson is the opposite, where like he just understands how to make it work basically anywhere he is, on the move, sliding in the pocket, like in awkward situations. And you're like, man, he can do a lot with that. So they're a lot of fun. Like I cannot wait. Like Sunday was awful for me. Saturday was an absolute blast because not only did you have a lot of really good college football, the endings of the games just happened to work out in a way you got to see them all play out and get to all those moments, from Mendoza's last drive to Dante Moore, who I'm virtually positive is going back to school, his last drive against Iowa, to Ty Simpson getting to play, to all of it, like, would just made for an awesome day of college football. And so I mean, like, trust me, it's frustrating. I am eagerly awaiting a bunch of lists to come out for me on some of the data stuff, but because of where the Browns are at, you immediately want to go get to the draft, and then you have to sit there and go, 3 more games at least for the teams that aren't going to be in a bowl or whatever, postseason of some sort, and then as many as 7 for some of these teams. Teams.
Oh, there's a lot of football left.
And if it is Ty Simpson, he needs all of them. Like that's going to help you bridge that gap of the lack of experience. And I get it. Yeah, coach's kid, all that crap. I heard the same thing with Garrett Nussmeier. Yeah, there's a value to it, but like, fine. I get it to a point. I still want to see him actually play the game and get those starts and get the experience, because I do think that is hugely valuable and the data backs it up. So I'm having a blast with all this. This is why I've tried to avoid like planting flags or any of the other stuff. I'm just happy to let college football sort of wash over me and see what I like.
Well, for sure. And we also we don't know who the hell is going to be in the draft or not. There's so many more variables to play out and situations and stuff like that. Look, we talked about it. The bulk of these kids are probably going to go back. They should go back. But there's also that outside chance that somebody looks at the Drew Allar situation. It's like, you know what? This 27 draft class is going to be loaded. Why don't I strike while the iron's hot? Capitalize on, the momentum that I've built and, maybe go a year early, but still get drafted in a good spot.
What I'm hoping is that the Jets will be like, no, we'll wait. That's what I want. I want those teams to be like, we'll wait for 2027. We really like all these other quarterbacks, and the Browns can just be like, okay, we get to pick between Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza. My fear, on the other hand, is that, if the Titans finish with the pick, then they get to potentially be deal maker if somebody
just sell off to whoever.
Now, I don't know how realistic that is. Obviously, we're way too far in front. Obviously,
they still got to play the Browns. They might get that second win, Pete.
There's that, and then we'll see about the Saints. I never thought Tyler Shuck was going to be a serious thing. I still am not convinced. But if he plays well, great. I would like him to keep winning so they get out of the way.
Hell yeah.
But I mean, those are the weird little elements that play out in this. But that's cautiously optimistic on the quarterback class, because the quarterback class is better than it was last year. It's just a question of, can they get the guy they need? And then the other positive is the wide receiver class is just better than it was last year, even though 2027 is also going to be better than that. But if I'm the Browns, I'm sitting here going, okay, I'll do both. I'll do 2026 and 2027 at wide receiver and get premium guys if that's what it takes to get that right, as opposed to we'll wait. Just got to go whole hog on offense and just get after it, and Jim Schwartz can just wait at home.
Yeah, right. Well, going back to your Mendoza comment, look, I'm a big Curt Cignetti guy. I think he's phenomenal. But Mendoza led the ACC in passing yards last year over Cam Ward. Kid can play, man. He's a good ball player. This is multiple systems that he was super productive. So
that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting on that. Todd McShay was talking about how Cal coaches weren't necessarily super torn up about him leaving. How much of that is sour grapes and all that? I'll be very curious when we start getting to the process and teams really get into the research and all that stuff. If we hear more about the Cal element and the truth behind it, and you get the equipment manager and all the other people who no, this kid was legit, and that may help him. Maybe there's some small thing where they come out and say, yeah, I don't know. Those are the elements, and that's the one benefit you get, or one of the main benefits, in addition to just being able to play, is with guys who go to multiple schools, you get multiple points of contact in terms of people who have been around this guy.
Yeah, and look behind the curtain.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing you can't get away from is okay, Indiana may have nothing but great things to say about Fernando Mendoza. After all, he's putting them on the map, and they could potentially end up in the college football championship. Cal could have no qualms about speaking ill of him if he was bad for them, or whatever it is. That whatever is going to come out, or teams are going to find out the real answer, and that part of it is super, super intriguing and valuable, just because you have so many more points of contact. And look, this is one of those things where you may have to sort. Not that this is going to be the thing, but there's a world where he could have been, an immature prick at one school and then grow up and become a better, that's the other part you sort of have to weigh in this whole thing. So it'll be interesting.
I feel like Jaden Daniels strikes me as that guy. I feel like he had a horrible experience at Arizona State, and they were thrilled to have him out of there. And he grew up and he figured things out at LSU, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and then there's the potential benefit of having that shape you. We'll see. Obviously, that was a thing for Baker Mayfield in college and all those things. Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, I that is one of the sneaky little interesting parts about this, where you get multiple schools of evaluation and feedback to sort of get the best, most fully formed picture of the kid that you feel really good about drafting.
So, Pete, let's talk about potential coaching changes. And it's obviously it's a hot button topic on local radio and everything like that. Just about everybody that has an opinion wants the Browns to fire this, that, or the other. So my problem with firing Stefanski and moving on from the coaching staff isn't necessarily that they don't deserve it, because, we've touched on it. There's probably a slew of reasons on both sides that you could make to either keep or get rid of these guys, right? But let's talk about what nobody's talking about. We're not going to be the only job that's available. And outside of not being the only job that's available, it's tough to imagine that there's going to be worse jobs available than ours, considering we don't have a quarterback, and we have salary cap issues, and we have the Haslams as our ownership group. Now, I think that, Jimmy and Dee probably look, don't get me wrong. I know there hasn't been a ton of success, but if you look in terms of trying to win, they pour money into this team and into this franchise, and seemingly give full autonomy to their football people to make these decisions, and basically give them a blank checkbook. So on the one hand, I think that the Haslams are low key good owners in that sense, but their just track record has been so bad. It's got a kind of a, negative thought process in the football world that they're bad owners, right? So you've got the Haslams, you've got no quarterback, you've got cap issues. Pete, what top flight coach is going to want to come to Cleveland?
Well, the cap issues are largely going to be solved, but there's still it's more along the lines of Deshaun Watson's probably still going to be on the roster. That's the more annoying part.
Yeah, well, that's another one.
Look, I think right now the worst job is Tennessee. Of the ones that are going to be open, obviously Tennessee is open. I think it's the worst job, unless you absolutely adore Cam Ward. Because ownership has proven to be unreliable and quick to pull the trigger, and all these other things, no patience. Mm-hmm. Basically, Jimmy Haslam
before Stefanski
15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah. Going through that period. Beyond that, the passion that Jimmy Haslam has for the Browns is valuable. The problem is it can get to a point where it's over enthusiastic, and you get infatuated with a quarterback who played in Houston, and then you know, even if the front office sort of like, yeah, this is an interesting idea and we like this, and then you make your play and you lose, and then the owner said, no, we don't lose. We guarantee the whole damn thing, because if they hadn't done that, obviously he doesn't come here, and this whole thing is avoided. You know, you can say, well, the Browns tried, and it's bad on the Browns for trying, but Jimmy Haslam is the reason they got him ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And that is problematic. And at a certain level, ownership ultimately dictates how good a team is. The Pittsburgh Steelers are poor. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't invest money in their facilities. The Pittsburgh Steelers do a whole bunch of things that are their travel accommodations suck, and they consistently win football games. They empower their coaches. They do all these other things. They get a lot of stuff right. There's a track record there. And Mike Tomlin, he's a great culture coach and all these other things, but part of that is the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like if Mike Tomlin was hired by Washington, do I think Mike Tomlin would be a good coach? Yeah, I think he'd be a pretty good coach. Do I think he'd be 18 years in a row or whatever the hell it is without a losing record? Absolutely not. So there's clearly a component where ownership is problematic in terms of that. The good news is that by handling Kevin Stefanski the way they have, and this is why I don't think they would fire him until the end of the season, I think they're cognizant of how, if they're going to fire him, that they want it to be received well by coaching candidates. I think the Giants did themselves a disservice in that regard, but I think the Giants' job will be more sought after than the Browns because it's the New York Giants. Even though the Giants have been awful, for worse than the Browns have in recent years, they still have a cachet to them that I think will carry them over in that capacity. I think that job will be more popular than Cleveland's will. But if some of these other jobs open up, many weeks ago we were talking about, well, John Harbaugh could go. He could still end up going. And if that happens, Baltimore shoots right up to the top of the list. They immediately win. Or if the Pittsburgh Steelers, if Mike Tomlin's like, you know what, I put it all into this year, it's just not going to work, and I don't want to go through a rebuild. I've been through this too many times. I'm walking away. Pittsburgh Steelers immediately jump in. That's just in your division. Like, is Zach Taylor going to survive in Cincinnati? Probably, maybe not. And if he doesn't, even though that's a poverty franchise, that's a poverty franchise to the nth degree. Maybe that's enough to push people away. They still got Joe Burrow. They still got T. They still got Jamar Chase.
That's the Indianapolis Colts when they hired Tony Dungy.
Yeah.
If I'm Cincinnati, I take this offense. I get the best defensive head coach and say, "Fix me, and we'll win."
Yeah, and that's where I get very worried about this, because everybody gets, oh man, I can't wait to fire the head coach. And we've done this, and then we go through it, and we're like the Chip Kelly year, for example, and you just start scratching guys off that you wanted, and then we're going, who and what, and their most heralded head coaching hire under Jimmy Haslam is Hugh Jackson.
Yep,
the worst one.
Yep, and that was easily the best received hire.
Yes, applauded.
Yep,
applauded as a great hire. Oh man, they crushed it and all this other things. Look, and obviously there's a part of this where you never know. And I tell people freely, people will ask, and if they do go through this head coaching, sure, who do you like? Who do you like? All this other stuff. I don't know. Yeah. How much information do I have? I have maybe 1% to 5% of the information I need to really sort of. If
that, what do you have? You have interviews and press conferences in between, whatever's to go off of, you public speaking and stuff we don't know. That's the hardest evaluation ever.
So as an example, one, I've heard all kinds of retread. Brian Flores is a popular name, and my immediate reaction is hell no.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get a young quarterback. You know who really does a great job with young quarterbacks? Brian Flores. He can terrorize him. No, but if it's Mike McCarthy, I don't want to be the third job of Mike McCarthy. I didn't want him the last time he was available. like somebody else mentioned Clint Kubiak. Clint Kubiak's doing a hell of a job with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yep.
He's doing an awesome job with them. And I give him a ton of credit for taking Sam Darnold, and they plugged in all these receivers, and it looks awesome. They are cooking. I cannot wait to see Rams Seahawks. Like those two teams going at it is going to be a lot of fun. But is Clint Kubiak like built to be a head coach? I don't know. Doesn't mean he is. Doesn't mean he isn't. But like, he could be Josh McDaniels. He could be any. You know, he could be who's the old Dallas Cowboys off North Turner. You know, great offensive coordinators who just don't translate. And like, I know there are a lot of people who think that's Kevin Stefanski. I completely disagree with them on that. But like, I'm never going to have enough information to like judge it. So you're just picking hot coordinator names and think, oh, he can do it. Like, based off what? I have no idea. So those are the issues you run into. And then who the hell knows if Clint Kubiak or any of these people want the Browns job? Like,
well, that's the biggest one right there. We have to sell somebody on this job, and you know, granted, like there's only 32 available, so we'll clearly get somebody, but still, you know,
like
it's not a guarantee. We know Stefanski can coach.
We've had people turn down the Browns job because their wife doesn't want to live in Northeast Ohio, like straight up. And like, what are you going to do about that? Like, you can't move the team to like somewhere that's more scenic. Like these are the challenges you run into where they're just like, look, I don't want to live in Cleveland, or I don't want to live in Northeast Ohio. I like living on the West Coast, or I like living, you know, somewhere warm or whatever. I want to live in Russell Wilson picked the New York Giants because his wife wanted to live in New York and didn't want to live in Cleveland. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like those are real things that happen with these guys. In addition to the fact that like there are some coaches, and Kevin Stefanski will be one of them, where if he is fired, he's going to get another shot somewhere. But most of these guys, you get one shot. And do you want to use it on the Cleveland Browns? That's
a tough sell.
That's tricky. And so like, and then all this is to say, like, you get into this thing, well, why shouldn't the Browns demand better and all this stuff? It's like, they can demand all they want. Doesn't mean it's going to work for them. And then we're going to get, you know, let's put it this way. Other than Kevin Stefanski, who do you think the second best hire of the Jimmy Haslam head coaches has been to this
point?
Mike
Pettin.
Yeah, I would agree. That was my immediate reaction to Mike.
And he was like the 8th choice.
Where's he at?
Mike Pettin?
Like, that's the other problem. Kevin Stefanski will be the first coach other than Pat Shurmur, which defies all that. Pat Shurmur gets fired by the Browns and somehow gets a job with who? The New York Giants. And now, most recently, you know, one of the other things that sort of raises a little bit of a red flag for me with Shedeur Sanders, just has play calling duties stripped to Colorado as they go through their 17th quarterback and get boat raced by a combination, like a combined.
Doesn't that make you more confident in Shedeur that he was able to rise above those circumstances?
Yeah, like that's the other part where you just sort of, maybe he is that good because he had to endure that. But like the other than Pat Shurmur and I presume Kevin Stefanski, the people who have taken jobs as the Browns head coach, there's no future.
No,
there's nothing. Freddie Kitchens, unbelievably nice guy, but he has been a assistant, and now he's the offensive coordinator at North Carolina. Like, that's the other part. Yeah, that's not going great. So, like, there's all these things where, like, the Browns can be an attractive job, could be a great job. And there are things that I like look at this franchise and I'm really hopeful that it can sort of be better. The training complex thing that's supposed to be done in 2027. Great. I like it. Cannot wait. The stadium obviously could be a huge boon for this team, but like if it, you know, if it means like getting Jimmy Haslam to do whatever, or the combination of ownership to do whatever they need to do to be a good ownership group, that is so much more important than anything else. And like, I don't know what it's going to take to get there, but like, that's where it's holding on to Kevin Stefanski in some ways is absolute fear. Like I genuinely think he's a good coach. Legitimately, I think he's a good coach, but I genuinely fear you are not going to do better than him. And it's going to be like when the Bengals fired Marvin Lewis. And your immediate reactions are going to hire the next Bruce Coslet or, those guys, because your franchise just doesn't work in a way that allows you to do those things. And like, that's the bottom line. Like, there's a whole lot of things they can change until ownership gets to a point where they're right, or at least allows the football people to run unencumbered. within reason,
Yeah.
you're going to run into these challenges. So I struggle with it. I struggle with that element, and that's why part of me thinks that Kevin Stefanski's weirdly safe.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy Haslam really wants to get this thing. One, I think Jimmy Haslam is desperately rooting for these guys. I think he likes having this combination, everything else.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wondering if he's going to give him this year, and it may depend on where they finish and all these other things, but we'll see. But yeah, the terrifying prospect of hiring a coach.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that Haslam said in the preseason, he emphasized that like wins wasn't going to be like the, end all be all that it usually is. But he also said 4-13 isn't going to cut it. So the manner with which they close this season out is going to be very telling to how things go moving forward. I will say this, and, I think we're both in agreement that we don't really want to see the wholesale changes, not yet, at least. I mean, and, depending on how the season goes, we both open up our opinions to change. But if they do make a change at the coaching level, and even if they get rid of both of them, they try a whole new whatever. I'll tell you, a regime that I would try to pluck from both the front office and the coaching staff would be the Los Angeles Rams. I really like Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, especially the job he's done with all those young guys after they lost Aaron Donald. And that Rams front office, man, is pretty damn good. So if I'm going to pillage anybody, that's the franchise I'm looking to emulate personally.
Maybe the problem you run into is like the Atlanta Falcons did that exact thing, and they are arguably the most underachieving team in the league. Like I was genuinely taken aback when I saw they're 3-5 and now 3-6.
Yeah,
I was sitting there going, "Wait, what?" Like,
and they're so helter-skelter too.
This is when I thought the Browns were. I stupidly thought the Browns were going to beat the Jets. I was like, the Browns are going to have the same amount of wins as the Falcons, who have Michael Penix, Drake London. They just got this defense going, all these things, and they're still losing. And that's a job that could open up. Like Raheem Morris seems to be a very good defensive coordinator. He's dreadful at game management, and Zach Robinson's getting crushed for what they're doing in the offense. Obviously, a lot of this revolves around Michael Penix being wildly inconsistent at this point. But like, you sit there and go, like, people are talking about the team winning the division.
Oh yeah. Well, and they're so helter skelter because you look the one Monday night they're beating Buffalo like they stole something. Like Josh Allen was overwhelmed with that defense.
Yeah.
And then they lose to Carolina like 30-0.
Yes, they got both. Like, absolutely destroyed. And that's the problem is they are Jekyll and Hyde. They completely change who they are week to week. To be able to win some of the games they've won, to then lose 17-7 or whatever it was. They lose to get boat raced by Carolina, who then loses to the Saints. Like that division is absolutely nobody wants to win it other than the Bucs. Everybody's just like, nope, not interested. So that's the other part about this like whole thing where I'm sitting here going, like, I get it, man. It sucks. Losing is terrible. But I sit here and watch some of these teams, and I'm just like, really? We're that worried about this? To like, the Atlanta Falcons are a perfect example. Like, they should be way better than they are, and they just aren't. Did Joe die?
Oh, are we back?
There we go. I can hear you now. I assume that means you can hear me then? Okay, you can hear me. That's all right. So these are the things that scare the crap out of me. Where and I, as much as I understand the frustration, I get it's so easy to say blow it up. It's so easy to be like, we're just gonna tear the whole thing down. Okay, then what? Like, this is the problem, and you get sort of that nihilistic attitude where this team stinks, and I get it. So that's where I'm sort of like, it's entirely justified if the Browns cut bait and say we're done with this. But it's also why I hope they don't, because I do think, I would make the argument that Kevin Stefanski, when he gets a quarterback, can be really good. He's proven it. When he's got anything of talent on offense, he's been able to make it work. And you look at the way the Browns have invested their resources recently, and it's almost entirely on defense, very little on offense. And hopefully this is the year where they freaking go whole hog on it, because I think if you get those things right, then Kevin Stefanski can make it work. But we got to see it. And that's where the other part with Jimmy Haslam, and I just don't know, because he has said that the 3-14 isn't good enough. Does he change his mind when all of a sudden he's in position to get a quarterback he really likes? Does he sort of give into those reverse incentives to be like, oh, yeah, this really sucked, but now I have a chance to get the quarterback I really want, and I think this is going to turn around real fast? There's a part of me that almost wonders if he's like, the middle is where I don't want to be. And I don't – this is the part – this is the element with Jimmy Haslam I just don't know. Is he okay – is he better, happier to be at the very top of the draft as opposed to being sort of just in the top 10 where it's just sort of like no real answers? And that's the part that I know, because if he says 3-14 is not good enough and they fires him for it, what am I going to say? They went 3-14 2 years in a row. Can you hear me, Joe? I see.
Yeah. Sorry about that. All right. Well, I mean, look, it's realistically, we got a lot of season left. We got a lot of opportunity for Gabriel and eventually Sanders to make their mark.
I think he just died immediately. Wow. Well, listen, it happens to the best of them. Yeah. So I think, to his point, there is a lot of season left, and so much of this could be about the progress of this team. So much of this is going to be a question of, what does Jimmy Haslam really want to see? Does he even know at this point? So yeah, it's going to be, those are the things we got to figure out. The Browns obviously got to play the Ravens this week. It would not shock me if the Browns win against the Ravens, just to absolutely screw with all of us and give us something we don't completely understand. But that's sort of where we're at in terms of the season. It's incredibly frustrating to watch. The fact that we're 2-7, we're already talking about the offseason is not where anyone wants to be. It's barely November. There's a whole lot of football left to be played, but that's sort of where we're at. So for Joe, I appreciate everybody who tuned in to listen. Hopefully this works out enough that it's not too choppy for people to listen to if they're listening to the re-recording. Apologize for the internet issues, but we will be back next week. Same time, all that stuff. Hopefully having something better to talk about. At least if they're going to lose, hopefully they lose with a game that's more enjoyable to watch. That's more than anything I want to see out of this team. We see some progress. Anyway, thanks for everything. Take it easy.